I don't think you're going to have a threat of contagion here. This isn't 2008. We're not, you know, there aren't. It wasn't caused by bad loans. Like 2008 was caused by everybody and their mother buying a house they couldn't afford.
Sure.
Right. And so that bill coming due, and then you had the contagion across, to the reinsurers and all this AIG and those companies, and this isn't like that. This seems to be isolated to these regional banks.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Angel Research Podcast. We're here as usual today to discuss the market's hottest stock stories and investment opportunities. Today we have Mr. Christian DeHaemer joining us. Christian is the founder and investment director of a couple of weekly market advisory services, including Bull and Bust Report and Launchpad Trader. And he is here to talk to us today about some key macro issues going on in the market. Per our usual disclaimer, nothing that we say here is personal financial advice. Like, comment, subscribe. Join the Discord. The engagement helps us out. Yada, yada, yada. Check the links below. Seriously, join the Discord. It's cool. We got a bunch of people in there talking about stocks and shit. Welcome, Mr. DeHaemer, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Could you maybe give us a quick rundown of who you are, maybe a little bit about your background, and then about your current newsletter services, Bull and Bust Report and Launchpad Trader?
Well, I've been in the Wall Street game now for about 27 years. I've been writing and investing during that time. I have a newsletter called Bull and Bust Report, and I also have a trading service called Launchpad Trader. Launchpad Trader's momentum system and gets us in and out of stocks quickly. And the Bull and Bust is something you can sleep at night. Hold it long-term 5-year returns.
Cool. What kind of situations are you covering in these? Do you stick to a specific sector, or are you just looking for special situations?
I'm sort of the church of what's happening now. Well, it also depends on what you're talking about, the two different services. But, in Launchpad Trader, I'm going into AI, because we've been making some money, doing those swing trades. And I'm in tanker stocks. And Bull and Bust Report, I like, big dividends these days. Long term, if the world fell apart and you had to hold this stock for 5 years, would you?
That's what you're looking at.
That's in Bull and Bust.
In Bull and Bust. And the other one, you're kind of more making quick profits.
Making quick profits, that's correct.
Okay. You mentioned AI. I want to talk about that a little bit later. But at the top of my list, I think we should talk about the bank collapse that's going on, because you're kind of I trust you on the macro sense more than most people, and I'm kind of out of the loop. I'm a little scared what's going on here. Maybe some of our audience is scared. Could you tell us what's going on with Silicon Valley Bank and then more recently Credit Suisse?
Well, yeah. Well, Silicon Valley Bank was a bank that obviously in Silicon Valley they did a lot of these startups, a lot of these VC, the unicorns that went public via SPAC or IPO over the last 2 years, and they were incredibly successful at that, and they had all these bank deposits. And then at the same time, what do you do with all these bank deposits? You put them in bonds, and so they put them in bonds, and they lost money, because the yields, went up, and so you had this problem. They were running short of cash, but what's amazing about it is like the speed at which it was both identified and resolved was like 3 days.
Yeah.
And so, which is it's quite amazing. And what's also amazing is they were given a clean bill of health like 10 days before this whole thing happened by CGMG, or a big accounting firm.
So we can't trust them.
So it's almost impossible to know what's
Yeah.
If you get a clean bill of health from an auditing firm and then 10 days later you're blowing up, it's crazy. Right?
That's pretty discrediting for that auditing firm. So you said that the situation was resolved. By that, do you just mean the bailout, or?
Yeah, the bailout.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to have a threat of contagion here. This isn't 2008. We're not. There aren't. It wasn't caused by bad loans. Like 2008 was caused by, everybody and their mother buying a house they couldn't afford.
Sure.
Right. And so that bill coming due, and then you had the contagion across, to the reinsurers and all this AIG and those companies. And this isn't like that. This seems to be isolated to these regional banks. And if you look at the big banks over the last week, their deposits have increased.
Yeah, because
So,
everyone's consolidating because they're afraid. You
Right.
want to be in a bank that's too big to fail because
Right.
your money is potentially safer.
right.
What is this? I think I remember when they put out the statement saying that they were going to bail them out. They were saying, at no cost to the taxpayer.
Right.
Is that how true is that?
Oh, I think it's, well, if they get it going again, they get the loans going again, I could see no cost to the taxpayer. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but
But,
you think in general that might? I mean, I hear that. I think that's kind of sounds like
yeah,
BS.
you think it's a lie. I mean, it's just like any Treasury Secretary defending banks and saying everything's safe here. It's like that guy, what's that, Baghdad Bob, Oh, nobody's invading. Remember that guy?
I don't remember him.
No.
Maybe we could throw a clip up or something.
But yeah, it's like, so if somebody says, like, if you have a Treasury Secretary saying, of like Malaysia or whatever, saying their currency is fine and we're going to defend it, yeah, you better sell the hell out of that thing. And same with banks, But in this case, I don't think we're going to have that cascading effect.
What about what's going on with Credit Suisse?
Well, if you look at Credit Suisse,
Yeah.
they've had, like a decade of bad management,
Okay.
Criminal management. They've been sued and investigated and paid fines. I mean, I think it was 2014, they were a $70 bank.
Yeah.
And so, before this happened, they were $10. So they went from 10 to 2. But you forget that they went from 70 to
So you think
0
that's
over 10 years.
you think that's a unique situation and just a uniquely poorly managed company? What about the timing of this? Is that like why do these two banks? Why was the timing coincide so closely?
Well, obviously, because they've been raising rates at a record amount.
Gotcha.
Right? But also, Credit Suisse has something interesting going on in that the Saudis were a big backer of Credit Suisse. And Credit Suisse jumped on board the sanctions with Russia, right? And so Credit Suisse is all aboard the sanctions against Russia. And the Saudis now are sort of in bed with both China and Russia. And so the Saudis are like, we're not going to back them anymore. And that sort of just stuck the knife in.
Gotcha. So there's some political gaming going on
Yeah,
here.
for sure.
Okay. So should investors or anyone who has a bank account, should they be concerned that they're going to lose their money? They're not going to be able to get their money out?
No, well, everybody got their money out, right?
That is true.
So
should we be concerned maybe then about like the sanctity of the dollar or trust in the dollar with this, or is this kind of one of those things that we've been there before and
yeah, there's banking crises. There's S&L, there's the one in 2008, and I think on the on the grand scheme of things, I think it's just like a 2-week news cycle, and I think you'll forget about it in 2 weeks. Is what I think.
Do you think we might see tightening lending standards?
Tightening lending standards. Everybody's talking about that. I guess Trump had a rule that he wanted to. Big banks do rent seeking, where they want more regulation to put competition on the little guys and keep them, from making money. And so, what Trump did to counteract this was to raise the limits of regulation from, I think it was 100 billion to 250 billion or something like that.
Gotcha.
And so everybody's saying this is what caused it.
What caused it? Sure.
And
By everybody, you mean like one particular side of the aisle, or is everyone actually saying?
Well,
this?
I don't know. Just the little research I've done, and people are playing game. Everybody has to blame somebody, and this is what they're blaming.
Of course.
At the moment. But we know it's the Fed hiking rates like the most in history.
So
to cause something to break.
I'm glad you brought up the Fed because that was going to be my next line of questioning. How does the Fed respond here? How do they respond? Do they try to contain the contagion and reduce, or do they try to save their own credibility and maintain course?
Well, who knows? But, I mean, so far they've done what they said they're going to do, right? And have they said, and I think they're saying they're going to raise 50 basis points next time.
Okay.
But then again, inflation has dropped from over 9% to, where is it at now? 6, right? The CPI number. And so the whole point of the Fed is to raise rates until you bring inflation under control. So it wouldn't surprise me if they hike 25 basis points next time.
Sure.
But, we'll see what happens.
What are some of the investing opportunities that you see from this fallout? Are there buying opportunities in the banks? Maybe is there any kind of, do you think that maybe this is the start of a new kind of crypto bull run potentially?
Well, it's interesting because it's Silicon Valley Bank, right? And so they're pulling out billions of dollars, and they're obviously all of them have a Bitcoin account. You know what I mean? And so what are they going to do? You're going to, is it easier to buy Bitcoin or gold? These guys are going to buy Bitcoin, obviously, and so you've seen a sort of spike in that.
Yeah, it's been flying lately, and I've kind of been disenchanted with the crypto space for a while, and I'm sure many people have. But I think in the face of something like this, it maybe gives it a little bit more credibility.
I think we have another year and a half for. If you look at the 2018 fallout for the Bitcoin, it went from 7,000 to 20,000.
Yeah,
and then you had a couple of these rallies, and then it flattened out, and that's what I'm waiting for is the long runway flat.
Gotcha. You want to find a floor before you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you've been talking some occasionally about the idea of like a centralized digital currency.
Right.
How does that maybe give us some more background on what that looks like or what that would look like, and then maybe like if you could pontificate on how that will affect independent cryptos?
Well, all right. Governments want control and power. There's always an authoritarian figure that figures, if we just had a few more tools, we could, solve crime or whatever it is. And so, like in the 70s when they initiated that rule that, you had to report $10,000 movements to your bank, the average house costs $10,000. Now the average house is $500,000, but you still have to report that $10,000, which is a ridiculous amount. I could sell an old car for $10,000. What does the government have to care about my old car? But that's how life works. I mean, President Reagan instituted the whole idea of, laundering money and that it's illegal to launder money. Before that, it was perfectly legal because, it's your money. But, and so it keeps going, and they ratchet up the, control. They ratchet up, take your privacy. And now if they have a centralized digital coin, a digital dollar, a Fed coin, they'll know to the penny. And so why this is concerning is we've seen it in like Canada during the trucking strike where Trudeau froze their bank accounts. So you're protesting the government and all of a sudden your bank accounts froze. But not only did they freeze the protesters, they froze the coffee shops that the protesters were using.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So if you can reach in and remove your money, because then, then it's like social rules that, like in China, if they follow your phone and if your phone's next to somebody else for too long, then your associate gets dinged, if they don't like you and things like that. And so just imagine given all this, if you lose your money, you lose, your sovereignty essentially. Yep. And so to give away your sovereignty on that sort of personal, ridiculous, intimate, detailed level is, evil.
So do you think that as that level of control gets like, the grip gets tighter and tighter, there is more pressure for people or more incentive for people to move into these independent cryptocurrencies?
I think so. I think, depending on your cryptocurrency, but stuff like, decentralized cryptocurrencies, I think there is. And if you look at places like Argentina and Turkey and places with high inflation, you'll see that a big demand for cryptocurrencies. Yeah.
Are there any cryptos that stand out to you right now? Like, are you just playing the basics?
Yeah, I'm just playing the big ones until, we get another rebound.
Gotcha.
Ripple's interesting.
Okay. Ripple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But mostly because...
I remember Ripple. I don't even remember what the
Well, they're working with like 20 countries to make CBDCs.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's sort of like the other side of it. But
Interesting. They're in bed with the enemy.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, got to make money somehow, right? Okay, let me go. You talked about artificial intelligence earlier. I know that you mentioned a couple of big winners that you guys have had in is it Launchpad Trader?
Launchpad Trader.
Yeah, I know that you have a couple of double-digit wins over the last week. You've been posting them in the Discord channel. Why should investors be interested in AI right now? And then maybe has the ship sailed, or do you think that this trend is just beginning?
Oh, well, obviously it's just beginning. It's going to take over everything. If you haven't played around with ChatGPT, I wish they had a better name. But, you should. It's fascinating.
It is.
And it's just the first one, and it's, it's full of mistakes and all this stuff. But you can, you can play around with it. My wife writes romance novels, so I was like, write something about a pirate and a daughter of a plantation shipwrecked on an island and the voice of Danielle Steele. and it like gave me like, whatever. I played with it. And I got like 4 chapters in like 10 minutes, and then, you start reading that people are doing this and selling them on Amazon. Self-published books and all this stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, the opportunity is definitely pretty insane.
And then like other things like medical stuff, right? So you list your symptoms and what do I have, and it asks you questions.
So, are you afraid of like what impact this is going to have on jobs and stuff? I know that you recently wrote an article, and a good chunk of your article you had ChatGPT,
right.
and you obviously said this in the article and you put it in context, but you had it right. Did you write about the top 3 AI stocks or something like that?
Yeah, it was actually I said give me the history of growth at a reasonable price, which is an investment strategy.
Yeah,
and then give me the top 3 stocks. And so it gave me 3 stocks. But the thing is with it now, it ends at 2021.
Gotcha.
Data. So you have to, you have to watch.
It's not going to be as up to date as a human can be, at least at the moment.
But I think the big problem is, like TikTok, like how social media destroyed our, has made youth concerning to me. I think this, imagine like you have a girlfriend who's nicer to you and better looking than anything you'll find in real life, and then you're like sort of trapped in this weird cycle.
You're talking about like AI girlfriends?
Yeah, AI.
Dude, I'll see like advertisements on my phone for like, and they're like, I can't believe that people are doing this. This is an actual business model now that you can have a virtual girlfriend.
Yeah. Isn't that distressing?
It's pretty cool. Have you seen that movie? I haven't seen the movie, but the Her with Joaquin Phoenix.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but that's basically like
idea,
the premise of
right.
it. What about the new what is that? The old sci-fi film that they remade, Blade Runner. The new Blade Runner. You see that?
I didn't see the new one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's got like an AI girlfriend.
Right.
It's pretty interesting. So when you're picking artificial intelligence stocks for Launchpad Trader, are you just looking for anything that has AI in the name, or how are you kind of peeling out like which companies are going to benefit from this trend?
Well, first of all, it's a great time to be investing in AI because a lot of these went public like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, 3 years ago, and so they're down 85%.
Yeah.
They just got crushed, and so a lot of them have big name partners. They're working with Fortune 500 companies, like a lot of them, and there's just tremendous upside here. And I think one, we're at a bottom, a cyclical bottom of these things because of the tech wreck, and 2, they're growing, they have growth, they have money because they just IPO'd. So some are trading like ridiculously cheap, and I just think the trend is there. If you are a CEO right now, you have to have an answer to what's our AI plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What is your advice to an investor who's looking at the tech market, looking at the market in general right now, and is afraid? What would you say to them to convince them that now is actually a good time to buy?
Well, it depends on the stock. So I'm in various things, and I'm not really in the S&P 500. So. You got to take your pick. You got to find your spots and take your picks. There's nothing wrong with cash. Cash is nice,
Yeah.
And if you're at this point, we don't really know where the market's going. The Fed's still raising rates until they stop. If they do stop, that's a clear sign to, start getting back in.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, you said the church of now.
Yeah, the Church of Now.
Okay, so speaking of, I want to hit on a couple, just 3 more topics that you've mentioned in the past that kind of I think fit under the theme of deglobalization.
Right.
And we talked about this, like, I think the last time that you were on here. I just want to see if these are still kind of topics that are in the now. The first is Mexico. Are you still bullish on Mexico?
Still loving Mexico. Mexico is, the population pyramid's good. Their currency is strong. They're having like 400 new plants or expansions of factories in Mexico, because what you have is the new NAFTA agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, and means that even if you're a Chinese company, you want to build a plant in Mexico to avoid the tariffs. And so the cargo mess and the supply chain mess of a couple of years ago, now you also want to shorten that as much as possible.
So when you had told me about this and I started researching it because I thought it was a really interesting thesis. And one of the things that I found like really interesting about Mexico is that they have more free trade agreements than any country in the entire world. And that really blew my mind. So yeah, you're hitting that one on the money, I think. What about the oil market in general and then specifically Brazilian oil?
Well, oil is kind of scary this week because it broke the 70 barrier to the downside, WTI, West Texas Intermediate.
What makes that a barrier?
Well, it was support, right?
Gotcha.
And so it was bouncing, between 70 and 85 or whatever. And we're down like 40% over last year. And so at the moment, it appears that oil's a bit oversupplied. But, it's weird because we had the SPR release. Biden released all our strategic oil. And everybody thought we were going to get killed. But then there was this remarkably warm winter in Europe, and so they didn't actually use all that
Yeah,
gas.
there was a lot of prediction about kind of this scary winter that was going to happen. It just happened to be super warm.
Right. But, Russia still, produces 10% of the, oil and gas in the world, and that's going to be needed. And China's growing, and the IEA said oil demand's going to go to 103 million a day, which is up, I don't know, like 3% or whatever. And it continues to grow, and demand, is still there. And so we'll see. I'm still bullish on oil. I really like PBR, though it's risky. I mean, it has political risk. But it's paying, a massive dividend.
What's PBR?
Petrobras.
Okay.
It's the Brazilian national oil company. It trades at like $10.
What about the? Let's move on to. I want to talk about tanker stocks. What's the deal there?
Well, here's the deal. The deal's simple: is that they stopped or greatly reduced the flow of oil through pipelines from Russia to Europe, which is right next door, and now that Russia oil has to go to its end buyers, which is China and India, essentially. So it has to go all the way around, which creates something called, in Europe, all the oil and gas comes from the U.S. or Guyana, and so the miles you're floating your tankers, go up dramatically, and the demand goes up dramatically, and because there hasn't really been a supply of new tankers for 8 years, there's a limited supply, and this isn't something they can just go out and build new tankers. There's, it's a 3-year waiting list, and because there was a problem with the supply problem of container ships, during COVID, all the dry docks and shipbuilding companies are now building container ships and can't even get to those new tanker stocks.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I like that thesis too. It makes pretty straightforward sense.
They're just crushing it. They have PEs of 5, some are paying 10%, they're doing really well. They have, really strong balance sheets. And, it could switch. They all sold off this week due to the price of oil falling. But the great irony, of course, is their earnings go up when oil price comes down because more volume is moved. Demand picks up.
Gotcha.
Because it's cheaper. But for some reason, Wall Street ties them together.
And which service are you talking about the tanker stocks in?
That's in Launchpad Trader.
Launchpad Trader. Okay, cool. We'll include some links below. I think we'll wrap up for today, but I got one last question for you related to the pipeline stuff. Who blew up the Nord Stream?
All right. Well, I guess it was the U.S. Those whatever diver guys are called.
Yeah.
Did you read that article?
I did. I saw that.
Yeah.
That blew my mind, and I was like, oh yeah, that
Who else
totally,
would it be?
that totally
I mean,
makes
who
sense.
else has motivation?
Yeah. Nope.
Germans aren't going to do it.
Makes sense.
Right.
Hey, Chris, good talking to you, man.
Talking to you.
Everyone, like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, and we'll catch you next time.